Despite knowing the journey of where it leads, I embrace it. Guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we are reviewing Arrival, a 2016 science fiction movie. This is a collaboration with Lee aka Sci-Fi First Talk. Before we get into the review, make sure to like this, subscribe, and also hit the bell icon so whenever I update, you will get a notification. Wow, this is a classic science fiction movie which everyone will love it. When I was watching this movie, it literally reminded me of the Interstellar, which is, it's such a classic. 12 extraterrestrial spacecrafts hover over the Earth, and the entire movie takes us to the journey of linguist Banks, who tries to decode the language of the aliens. The aliens are not harmful, but something more bigger than that. The background score, direction, cinematography, everything is just so beautiful and aesthetic that the entire film is just, you are in awe of how amazing it is. The filmmakers and writers have done a fabulous job with the language thing. It's just beautiful. By the end of the movie, we realize that these aliens can see the past, present, and future. Lee, aka Cypher Stock, has a more detailed review on this film, so let's get right into it.
Thank you, Ankita, for that wonderful introduction, and of course for having me on your channel. It's an absolute pleasure to be featured, and hopefully I actually do your channel justice with my take on the movie. So yes, Arrival. As I'm a guest on Ankita's channel, I will do my very best not to give away any spoilers for this film. Indeed, it is the kind of film I would wholly recommend you watch without any knowledge of what is going on to really get the maximum benefit from its overall plot. So in looking to choose a film that I hadn't seen previously for this episode, which was kind of the premise of the collaboration that we're doing, Arrival had certainly caught my eye. I mean, I hadn't actually been to see it at the cinema, and to be honest, at the time, it just fell by the wayside for me in what was, I mean, looking back, quite an eventful year for film. I mean, however, since then, I have heard nothing but good things about this movie, and still hadn't yet got around to watching it. So I thought this collab was with Ankita Says was absolutely the perfect opportunity to see the movie, to see if it actually lived up to what I'd heard, and lived up to its hype. What I will say from the very off is that I absolutely loved this film. From the very start, this film grabs your attention and manages to present something which has been done so many times over, but still builds up suspense and intrigue for its principal characters and the aliens in a real fresh and enlightened way. If you are after a kind of a big budget sci-fi blockbuster without and out battles, big explosions and cheesy dialogue, then this film is perhaps not for you. But if you are after a film that is cleverly constructed, subtle in its delivery and captivating throughout, with a real sense of construct and commitment and a more sophisticated take on the alien invasion genre, then this film is definitely for you. From a very personal and harrowing start for Amy Adams' character in the film, it really gives a very slow build-up to our first glimpse of the alien craft. Choosing to kind of invest us in Adams' character first and foremost, and then build our tension and anticipation for the aliens second. And don't let this put you off. The film is actually really very centric to Adams' character throughout. And this build-up is indeed needed to set the character's frame of mind, motivation, and ultimately her link to understanding the aliens themselves and why they have indeed chosen to visit our planet. The cinematography in the movie is just simply stunning, but not overdone, as to overshadow the characters and the overall story development, which the movie does very well to focus on at all times. The film shows us the delicate balance between language, science, and in this case the military, amidst an ever-growing paranoia throughout the world, as it struggles to kind of come to terms with the visitor's arrival and builds up the spectacle of first contact, offering us a real full range of emotions from wonder, horror, fear, paranoia, to admiration and absolute sheer respect. Character-wise, as I said previously, this is centric to Adam's portrayal as the linguist Louise Banks, and she is exceptional in this film, if I'm honest. The supporting characters are pretty good too, just not to the same level. Jeremy Renner felt a little surplus at times, although he added a little humour to the proceedings, which added kind of a welcome break from some of the tension which was building on screen, but not to the extent that it was overdone or seemed out of place. Like the special effects, this element was very subtly done. It was mainly observational humour regarding some of the situations and the elements being experienced by the characters, which I thought worked really well to give the movie some real world grounding. In fact, indeed, as we are being introduced to the aliens, the characters themselves actually ask all of the questions that we as a viewer would be asking at the same time. It was quite surreal. In this respect, the film then leaves us to be able to kind of focus primarily on the linguistics and the science elements of the film and kind of bask in its breathtaking beauty rather than kind of get bogged down in irrelevant details. I did also enjoy Forrest Whitaker in this movie. He actually played a real good military colonel who I thought was very fair and very just. It was actually real nice to see him in a role where he wasn't actually whispering as he does in so many of his roles. There were a couple of things, however, that didn't quite gel for me, and I suppose it's being a little nitpicky, and some of them were gripes as I was watching it, but then as the film went on, you kind of understood to some degree why these things happened the way that they happened. But hey, no spoilers, so for me, it is obvious that in the film we are dealing with a highly advanced life form that, you know, they'd travelled all this way, but with no real evidence that they ever tried to understand us. Although they did seem to have quite some patience. That is very true. The other was the introduction of Adam's character to the aliens, and then her first word as an introduction to them, human. I get that this would indeed be the first used word used to actually establish a base for dialogue, but the question is really, why did it take an accomplished linguist to have to be called in to do this? Surely somebody could have used a marker pen and a clipboard and done the same for this one. But like I said, you know, these are pretty much coming from a non-spoiler perspective. Certainly watch the film and let us know your thoughts in the comments below, absolutely. By the end of the film, I did actually get some of the answers I was actually looking for, I must admit. But the biggest issue I did have with the film was that the ultimate solution wasn't perhaps 100% down to skill and expertise. Something that the film had actually pressed hard to reinforce throughout. And for me, it seemed like a real wasted opportunity. I can actually see why the filmmakers went this way, don't get me wrong, and that they did. And indeed, I do believe it works very well. But what I would have liked to have seen is more investment in the use of linguistics and science to actually solve the problem overall. But then, that really is probably just the kind of the geek coming through from me, you know. But finally, from me, I'm nearly done, promise. I just wanted to comment on the film soundtrack, which I believe increased the absolute awe felt throughout the film. It was composed by Jóhann Jóhannsson, and you know, the soundtrack, whilst not really having any distinct theme, I couldn't hear one, provides a real overall intense and eerie feel, which really does set the tone of the movie very well. Overall, you know, for a film that is essentially about language and communication, it is exceptionally crafted and does contain some very tense moments, which you would undoubtedly have when dealing with what would appear to be a very complicated language, and when the chances for misinterpretation are significant, and with everybody sat with their finger on the button, so to speak. A truly thought-mesmerising and provoking movie in my book, with some truly nail-biting puzzle box moments, without having the need for an over-the-top special effects-laden finale. In fact, the ending we did get just literally blew me away. So, I would just like to say thank you for staying on to watch my review, and of course to Ankita Says for actually having me on her channel. this collab has been a great experience and the first of many, I'm sure. So that's a massive thank you from me and a goodbye as I now pass you back to Ankita.
Shout outs to him for giving such a critical and amazing review of The Arrival. If you haven't checked out his channel yet, make sure you do that. The link is in the description below. What are you waiting for? Just subscribe. Also, he is an amazing YouTuber and it was so collaborating with him. He is very organized and sweet. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you like it. If you do, make sure you subscribe, comment and keep doing that and supporting me. I will see you next week with another